The entire room laughed when my husband called me the charity case wife. I still remember the sound. Glasses clinking. Music playing softly in the background. Women covering their mouths while laughing. Men pretending not to look uncomfortable. And him, standing there with a drink in his hand, smiling like humiliating me was the funniest thing in the world. But what none of us knew that night was that karma was already walking through the front door. My name is Sarah. I was married to my husband, Daniel, for 6 years. And for most of those years, I genuinely believed I was lucky. Daniel was confident, charming, successful. The kind of man who could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. People admired him. Especially women. At first, I used to feel proud standing beside him. But slowly, that feeling changed. Because the more successful Daniel became, the smaller he started making me feel. It never happened all at once. That's the dangerous part. Cruel people rarely become cruel overnight. It starts with little comments. Tiny cuts. Small humiliations hidden inside jokes. You're adorable when you try to understand business stuff. You wouldn't survive 1 week at my office. Good thing one of us knows how the real world works. And every time he said something hurtful, he'd smile afterward. Like I was supposed to laugh too. So I did. Because that's what wives do when they don't want to start a fight in public. Right? At least that's what I kept telling myself. I used to work as a preschool teacher before we got married. I loved it. The kids. The little drawings. The chaos. But after Daniel's career took off, he convinced me to quit. At this point, your salary is basically lunch money, he joked once. I laughed back then. God. I wish I hadn't. Looking back now, I think the marriage really started dying the moment I stopped feeling like a partner. And started feeling like an accessory. And the office party? That was the night everything finally exploded. Daniel worked at a huge marketing company in downtown Chicago. Every year they hosted a luxury office party. Fancy hotel. Expensive wine. Designer dresses. Perfect fake smiles. Daniel loved those events. Because they gave him an audience. This year was different though. He seemed unusually excited. Almost nervous. Checking his phone constantly. Smiling at messages he wouldn't show me. When I asked who he was texting, he casually replied, "Just work stuff." But something about the way he avoided eye contact made my stomach twist. The night of the party, I stood in front of the mirror for almost an hour. Not because I wanted to impress anyone. I just didn't want Daniel to look disappointed in me again. I wore a dark emerald dress. Simple. Elegant. When I walked downstairs, Daniel looked at me for 2 seconds and said, "That's what you're wearing." My confidence disappeared instantly. "I can change if you want," I said quietly. He sighed dramatically. "No, it's fine. Just, try not to look so nervous tonight." That sentence stayed in my chest the entire car ride. The hotel was beautiful. Crystal chandeliers. Soft piano music. People laughing with champagne glasses in their hands. And immediately, I noticed her. Tall blonde woman. Red dress. Confident smile. She walked straight toward Daniel. Not me. Him. "Oh my God, there you are," she said warmly before touching his arm. Daniel smiled instantly. "Sarah, this is Vanessa. She's our new regional director." Vanessa looked me up and down politely. "Nice to meet you." But there was something in her eyes. Something cold. Like she already knew more about my husband than I did. Then I noticed something else. Daniel suddenly became different around her. Louder. Funnier. Trying too hard. And deep down, I think I already knew why. About an hour into the party, everyone gathered near the stage for speeches. Daniel had been drinking. Not completely drunk, but enough to let his real personality slip out. The CEO started complimenting employees and their families. People clapped politely. Then somehow, the conversation shifted toward marriage. One of Daniel's coworkers laughed and asked, "So Daniel, what's your secret? How do you balance work and married life?" The room chuckled. Daniel raised his drink dramatically. And then he said, "Well, it helps when your wife doesn't actually have a career." People laughed lightly. My stomach dropped. I forced a smile. "Please stop. Please stop." But he kept going. "Sarah basically retired at 30. Honestly, I think I'm her full-time sponsor at this point." More laughter. Hot embarrassment rushed into my face. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. But then, he looked directly at Vanessa and smirked. "I call her my charity case wife." The room exploded with laughter. And in that exact second, something inside me broke. I looked around the room. Nobody defended me. Nobody said, "That's cruel." They just laughed awkwardly because it was easier. And Daniel? He looked proud of himself. Like humiliating me made him look powerful. Then I saw Vanessa again. But this time, she wasn't laughing. She looked uncomfortable. Actually uncomfortable. And that confused me. Because suddenly, it didn't feel like she was enjoying this at all. Then the hotel ballroom doors opened. And everything changed. A man walked inside wearing a dark gray suit. Tall. Serious. The moment Daniel saw him, the color drained from his face. I frowned. I had never seen my husband look scared before. Not once. The man walked directly toward the CEO. Whispered something. And within seconds, the CEO's expression changed too. Panic. Real panic. The music kept playing. But the energy in the room shifted instantly. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Daniel grabbed my arm suddenly. Hard. "We need to leave," he whispered aggressively. "What? Now?" His voice shook. Daniel never shook. I pulled my arm back. "What's happening?" "Just get your coat." But before we could move, the CEO stepped onto the stage again. This time, he looked pale. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said nervously, "we need to end the event early." People started murmuring immediately. And then the man in the gray suit spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I'm afraid there's also an ongoing financial investigation involving several company executives." Silence. Complete silence. My heart started pounding. I slowly turned toward Daniel. And for the first time in 6 years, my husband wouldn't look me in the eyes. That's when I realized. The man humiliating me all night was hiding something much bigger. The drive home was silent. Daniel gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "What investigation?" I finally asked. "Nothing. Daniel. It's complicated." "No," I said quietly. "Humiliating me in front of your coworkers was complicated. This? This is something else." He slammed the brakes at a red light. "You don't understand how business works." There it was again. That same arrogance. Even now. When we got home, I noticed him immediately grabbing his laptop. Typing frantically. Deleting files. Making calls. And suddenly, all the little things from the past year started connecting. Late-night meetings. Secretive phone calls. Random expensive purchases. His constant stress. The way he snapped at me more and more lately. I felt cold. "Daniel, what did you do?" He didn't answer. Which was answer enough. 2 days later. The news exploded. Fraud investigation. Missing company funds. Executive misconduct. Daniel's company was everywhere online. And his name? Right in the middle of it. I stared at the TV in disbelief while reporters discussed millions of dollars that had disappeared through fake vendor contracts. I couldn't breathe. The man who called me a charity case was literally being investigated for financial crimes. But the worst part? I still hadn't learned the truth about Vanessa. And when I finally did, it changed everything. 3 days later, Vanessa contacted me directly. At first, I almost ignored the message. But something told me to answer. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She looked exhausted. No makeup. Dark circles under her eyes. Completely different from the glamorous woman at the party. "I owe you an apology," she said immediately. "For what?" "For not stopping him that night." I stayed silent. Then she took a deep breath. "I need you to know something. Daniel and I were never having an affair." I blinked. "What?" "I thought you were," I admitted quietly. She nodded sadly. "Most people did." "Then what was going on?" Vanessa hesitated. Then she said, "I was helping investigate him." My chest tightened. "What?" "He'd been under internal suspicion for months. The company believed he was moving money through fake accounts." I stared at her in shock. "So the flirting was part of getting information," she admitted softly. I hated it. Suddenly everything made sense. Daniel wasn't showing off for her. He was nervous around her. Because deep down, he knew. Vanessa looked genuinely guilty. "The moment he humiliated you at the party, I realized exactly what kind of man he really was." Tears burned behind my eyes. Not because I still loved him, but because hearing the truth out loud hurt more than I expected. Then Vanessa said something that completely shattered me. "He always talked about you like you were beneath him." That night, I packed a suitcase. Daniel barely noticed. He was too busy panicking over lawyers and investigations. When I finally told him I was leaving, he looked stunned. "Seriously? Now?" I laughed bitterly. "Now?" "Yes, now." His voice rose angrily. "You're abandoning me when I need support?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Support? After everything? You embarrassed me in front of an entire ballroom." "You're overreacting." "There it is," I whispered. "That sentence. Again." He suddenly softened his tone. "Sarah, don't do this." For one dangerous second, I almost felt guilty. That's what toxic people do. They hurt you, then make you feel guilty for bleeding. But then I remembered the laughter, the humiliation, the smirk on his face. And the guilt disappeared. "I'm done being the person you step on to feel taller," I said quietly. Then I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. Over the next few months, Daniel's entire life collapsed publicly. More evidence came out. More charges. More scandals. The same coworkers who laughed at his jokes suddenly avoided him completely. Funny how quickly fake admiration disappears when power disappears too. And me? For the first time in years, I started feeling alive again. I went back to teaching. Back to children. Back to laughter that wasn't cruel. Back to a version of myself I thought I had lost forever. One afternoon, while helping a little girl paint cardboard stars, I realized something. I was happier earning my small teacher salary than I had ever been living inside Daniel's expensive world. Because peace is worth more than luxury. About a year later, I saw Daniel one last time. Completely by accident. I was leaving a grocery store when I spotted him sitting alone at a small outdoor cafe. He looked older. Tired. Smaller somehow. When he noticed me, he stood up immediately. "Sarah." I froze. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he quietly said, "I lost everything." I looked at him carefully. And strangely, I felt nothing. No anger. No revenge. No satisfaction. Just distance. Then he asked the question I think he'd wanted to ask for a long time. "Are you happy?" And honestly, that was the easiest question anyone had asked me in years. "Yes," I said. A small sad smile appeared on his face. Then he nodded slowly. Like he finally understood what money and status could never buy back. Respect. Love. Trust. As I walked away, I remembered the woman standing frozen in that ballroom while everyone laughed at her. The woman who felt small. Weak. Humiliated. And I almost wished I could go back and whisper something to her. Just one thing. This won't break you forever. Because sometimes karma doesn't arrive with screaming or revenge. Sometimes, it simply removes the mask from the person who hurt you. And lets them destroy themselves in front of everyone. And honestly, that's even more satisfying.